It's the show the establishment warned you about.
That's right, it's the Dr. Tommy Show, broadcasting from the free state of Florida. I am your host, Dr. Tommy McElroy, and I am broadcasting from Echelon Health Studios. Glad you're here. Today's Thursday in Florida, and it surely is hot. Hot. Went to a field day this morning with my daughter at her school in Lutz Prep, and boy, it started off cold this morning. I actually put the heater on, and then today it's hot, so that's Florida for you. But can't complain, not too much. We haven't had hurricanes in a while, so thank goodness for that. Thank God for that. Anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about a little bit of medical stuff. I wanted to show you something here. Okay, so here's my webpage, right? I wanted to show you something about heart scans. Heart scans, when I tell people, I ask patients, I said, it's part of our physical. I say, well, it depends on how old you are. But I say, have you had a heart scan or you need a heart scan? Sometimes they say, oh, I had a heart scan. I was like, oh, okay, good. And then they tell me they had a heart scan. They did have a heart scan. It's called a coronary calcium score. A coronary calcium score is a CT scan that scores the calcium that's present in the coronary arteries of your heart. It is not the one I'm talking about. The one I'm talking about is called a CT angiogram. And a CT angiogram, ours, are done by Dr. Morales in South Tampa Cardiology. And the reason I bring that up is because when I tell patients or I recommend that they get a heart scan and they say they've had a coronary calcium score or they've had a heart scan and then I find out it's a coronary calcium score, like I said, that's not the same thing to me. The reason why is because a coronary calcium score, if it's 0, is great. And I think I covered this a few days ago. But it is not the end-all to be-all because it doesn't look for soft plaques. Soft plaques can rupture. Soft plaques can grow. Hard plaques are calcified. And if you have a calcium score of, let's say, 1, you may still have plaque in abundance. Now, it's less likely, but it's possible. And so it can give you a false sense of security. So I just wanted to go over that a little bit more in detail because I think part of a screening physical or a part of a physical should have preventative screening tests. And one of them should be a screen for heart disease. Now, this is not done in normal practice because the authorities don't say you should. Actually, you know what? It's funny. If you look at this, if you Googled this, ask an AI or ask the internet, say, should I have a coronary CT angiogram? They'd probably say, well, it's not proven that it's accurate and the authorities don't recommend it because it may lead to false positives and it may cause you to have some tests that you would not have done otherwise because of those false positives, which is absolutely true. And it exists in all screening tests. A good screening test catches, hopefully, if you ask someone, say, design a good screening test for a disease, and they would say, okay, I want to design a test that catches all of the disease and maybe even some people that don't have disease. That way I don't miss anything. And that's called sensitivity. And then there's another test or another statistic called specificity. And so that says, is what I captured indicate what I'm looking for? So, for instance, you can say, well, that test is too sensitive, but it's not specific because it may show shadows. And those shadows may be interpreted as plaques, and then they're not plaques, and you end up getting some other exams done, and before you know it, you did not have as much coronary disease as you thought. My argument for that would be, well, I'd rather know that there is possibly coronary disease and then go after it that way than just, just to miss it or not even look for it at all, which is what usually happens. If you walked into 99 out of 100 doctors' offices in Tampa today, primary care doctors, and you said, well, I heard on a podcast that you should have a coronary angiogram, they would probably say, well, that's not proven, that's not recommended, and you're not going to get one from me, meaning an order. And like I said, 99 out of 100. Now, we have a patient in our practice actually who was found to have coronary artery disease from a podcast. The podcast didn't tell him, but he listened to a podcast and it said, just like this, go get a heart scan, go get a CT angiogram. He did, and voila, he had heart disease and was able to be treated. So it happens. The reason to get one is because heart disease is the number one killer of men and women in the United States, and it is preventable. You hear all day long about getting a mammogram. You hear all day long about getting a colonoscopy. You hear all day long about getting a prostate exam potentially. You don't hear about getting a heart scan, and I've been saying this for since 2015 on this podcast. You should do that. And you should do that because it's the number one statistical reason that you will die. And if you can prevent that, then great. The other thing I wanted to say about these tests they're not usually covered by insurance. And then so people are like, well, if it's not covered by insurance, it must not be legit. And that's for you to decide. I will tell you, it's about $700 to get the test done. And if you get it done, then you can say that you do or do not have heart disease with a pretty good level of confidence. And I will also tell you that the reasons they say is that, well, they're not accurate. I have reason to believe they are accurate based upon my experience with them. I can't say that across the board, but our specific practice, like I said, Dr. Morales at South Tampa Cardiology, pretty confident in his outcomes because they have matched a lot of times what people end up having with catheterizations. Now, not everyone's had a catheterization after they've had a heart scan, but in the few that have, or in some that have, there's a high correlation. Okay, so that's heart scans. Oh, okay. I want to head over to show prep here. Today, I wanted to talk to you about Ezekiel Emanuel. So who's that guy? Well, he's the guy who was Obama's guru having to do with healthcare in 2008 or 2010. And Ezekiel Emanuel says the ACA has done good, but the system sucks. It's broken. And this is from Breitbart. Ian Hatchett on Breitbart. Hanchett on Breitbart. And said that, Ezekiel Emanuel thinks that we need to reform ACA because it's broken. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that whatever comprehensive reform that they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago now, didn't do a damn thing for you. And actually all it did was it kind of made some people rich, particularly health insurance companies, made a lot of health industry people rich. And it made a lot of people get health insurance for very little money. And it made a lot of people pay a lot of money for health insurance and made a lot of people stop getting health insurance because they paid a lot of money. And this highlights a problem that we see with experts like Ezekiel Emanuel, who is the brother of Rahm Emanuel. Experts don't understand, either they do or they don't. You can look at it two ways. So people like Ezekiel Emanuel, Dr. Emanuel, may very well understand exactly what they've done with Obamacare, which is basically create a transfer payment system whereby people who are not able to afford the inflated prices of insurance have insurance provided to them with a subsidy that is paid for by another person. So they take money meaning the government, take money from one person for whom they take money from one person and give it to someone else to whom it does not belong. And as to use the words of the late, great Walter Williams. So that's what you do with Obamacare. You take money from one person and give it to someone else to whom it does not belong. And you call it a subsidy. And then you say, okay, now go take this subsidy and pay this selected insurance company and buy their product. And their product is expensive. And their product is basically comprehensive insurance that pays for everything. It pays for your doctor visit. It pays for your medication. It pays for your colonoscopy. It pays for your dentures, whatever. It pays for your mammogram. And so all these things are all wrapped up. And then we tell patients, well, this is the way that you get healthy. And here you go. Well, the problem is they did all of that. And then what happened was there was not enough people buying into it. One of the reasons why not enough people bought into it is because one of the few things that Paul Ryan did when he was the Speaker of the House was he was able to get a bill passed and signed that said the penalty for insurance is zero. And that was done, I believe, in 2016 when Donald Trump was first elected president. It's about the only good thing that Paul Ryan and whoever was running the Senate at that time did. Oh, it must have been the turtle, Mitch McConnell, because he ran the Senate forever. Anyway, I think it was Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. They did that together, and that was about the only conservative thing that they actually did with Donald Trump when he was president the first time. Is they said the penalty for not buying health insurance is zero. The penalty is still there. If you look in the statutes, it's still there, or the law, or whatever. But it is zero. So you do not have to pay a penalty, because there used to be a penalty. Believe it or not, you used to have to pay money to the government if you did not buy the health insurance plan that they concocted through legislation that you should have. And these plans are called comprehensive. Like I said, they cover everything. They cover your medications. They cover your doctor visits. They cover this, that, and the other. And then after all that, the reason, and they do cover all that, and because the fact that they do cover all that, they're extremely expensive. So then you get to the other part of it, which is, okay, so now I have this plan that covers everything. Great on paper, but I have a deductible, and my deductible is not $1,000. It's not $2,000. A lot of times it's $6,000. Tell you a little story. In 2010, I was a new graduate. I joined a multi-specialty group. I was given insurance as part of my benefits package. The insurance was United, I believe. It doesn't matter. It was a big box health insurance plan. It covered everything. It had a copay. The deductible was like, I don't know, less than $1,000, maybe it's $600. All right. So that was in 2010. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2010. 2012 rolls around. Obamacare has gone into effect in 2010. And you're on the tail end of the time when there was what's called grandfathering. You could grandfather in a plan that you had. So I separated from that company because I started this company. And I elected to say, well, I'm going to continue with this health insurance. And I bought a plan for that same health insurance. And the cost of it was $150. And that was in 2012, $150 a month. And it was no subsidies. I paid for it all myself. I paid for it completely. I had no employer. Like I said, I had just separated. I just started this company. And so I paid for it $150. Fast forward to today. People pay thousands of dollars for the same type of insurance. Other people pay very little, maybe nothing, because Obamacare subsidies. And so Ezekiel Emanuel cannot figure out now why the system's broken, but he knows, what does it need? More reform by experts like himself. We will not have health insurance that is affordable until we have health insurance deregulation. In order to get health insurance that is affordable, you have to have health insurance that is insurance. What do I mean by that? Well, insurance should pay for things that are rare, in my mind, expensive, and unpredictable. Now, you can use that across the board. So if you have a house and you have insurance for it, homeowner's insurance, you should use that insurance to pay for things that are rare, expensive, and unpredictable. So in cases where it doesn't meet all of those things, it's probably not a good idea to use it for insurance. So let's make an example. I need a new roof. That's rare, okay, because the roof will last for 15 years. It's expensive, yes. It's not unpredictable. You know it's coming. So therefore, you should not use your your homeowner's insurance to pay for that roof. Now, let's make another analogy. I need a new roof for my house because a tree fell on my house. Okay, now let's back up. That's rare. Trees don't normally fall on houses. It's expensive, same roof, and it's unpredictable. You did not predict the tree was going to fall on your house. You should use your health insurance for that. Now, let's make an analogy to healthcare. All right. So what do we have now? We have health insurance, and Obamacare's health insurance says that it has to pay for, what is it? I forgot what they call it, but basically there's some basic things that they have to pay for. And they say, well, if it doesn't have those things, then they call them, what was the term Obama used? He said that they're not good. Basically, they're cheap insurance plans. They're skimpy, I think is what they call them. They're skimpy. They don't include your generic medicines that you can get for $3 a month. They don't include your doctor's visit, which let's call it as $100 for a doctor's visit if it was cash. They don't include your x-ray for your chest because you coughed for too long, which is $50 cash. They don't include your MRI. Oh, well, here we go. MRIs are, thousands and thousands of dollars, right? MRI of my brain, maybe. Well, MRI of your brain is $350 cash. So anyway, Obamacare says all of those things have to be covered or covered with the caveat after you've paid your deductible. And then you have to negotiate that deductible. But anyway, let's say they're all covered after you deal with the prior authorizations and all that other crap. Let's say it's all covered. Well, then you have what in their mind, in Dr. Emanuel's mind, Dr. Obama's mind, and Dr. Biden's mind, both Joe and his wife. That's what you call a good insurance plan. And if it's not as skimpy, well, let me tell you what a skimpy insurance plan should cover. A good insurance plan should be skimpy, and it should cover things that are rare, expensive, and unpredictable. A good insurance plan, not a skimpy one, a good, legit insurance plan should cover you if you get hospitalized and it costs thousands of dollars, because that's rare and it's expensive and it's unpredictable. The visit to your doctor is neither rare nor is it expensive nor unpredictable. Insurance should not cover that. Your generic medication is not rare, expensive, or unpredictable. Now, then you can get into the different nuances about should medicines be covered or not, and this, that, and the other. When I first interviewed in medical school, I talked to and I think I may have mentioned this before, I talked to a radiologist. He was interviewing me, and he said, we were talking about medicine. He said, the only way that you can make medicines affordable is if you made it illegal for insurance to pay for them. And the reason he said is because then they would actually be sold for what they cost. And they would be sold for market value. And you cannot, if you're an insurance executive or a shareholder in an insurance company, you cannot eat or otherwise spend medicine. You have to sell it. And so there's no value to the medicine unless you can sell it. And insurance companies inflate and distort the prices of everything. The prices of medicine, the prices of an MRI, the price of a doctor visit, the price of toenail fungus cream, whatever it is, insurance distorts and inflates that price. You say, well, I have insurance and that's wrong because I don't pay anything for my medication. I go to the doctor, he writes a prescription, and I have Cadillac insurance, and my Cadillac insurance says my copay is $0. So Dr. McElroy, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I have great insurance. I have Cadillac insurance. Yes, you do. You have Cadillac insurance. You probably pay $15,000 for it a year, or your employer does on your behalf, which comes out of your end because your employer doesn't hire you and say, okay, we're going to hire Tommy and we're going to pay him a salary and we're going to pay him this insurance plan. And it's going to be $15,000, but we're not going to factor that into the cost of employing Tommy. We're going to keep that separate. That's not going to factor into it. If the price of the insurance was $1,000 or the price of the insurance was $15,000, it's not going to affect his salary at all because we're big-hearted and we're just going to eat that. Your employer doesn't do that. So yes, you may very well have insurance that covers everything, quote unquote. You may have a Cadillac plan, which in my experience, when patients tell me they have a Cadillac plan, that usually means hold on because you're about to get denied something that's pretty routine. Anyway, so if you have a Cadillac insurance, you're paying a Cadillac price for it, or your employer is. And so, yes, you may get some things on the cheap. You may get a generic medicine for $0. The reason why is because your insurance company pays about 3 cents for your pills. And so they'll say, okay, we'll eat the 3 cents because we charge them $1,000 a month. That's them. And their employer pays us $10,000. So yeah, we'll give them the 3 cent one and we'll tell them they got a good deal. And a lot of people will believe it because that's marketing. Insurance, the biggest thing about health insurance is marketing. Uh, it's just, unless you sit down and think about it and dissect it, you can have the wool pulled over your eyes so easily. And like I said, if you have Cadillac insurance, you're paying a Cadillac price, and then you should get a few things for free. But insurance, if we wanted to deregulate insurance, if we wanted to make healthcare affordable, as Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel claims to want to do, what Dr. Obama wanted to do, he wanted to make healthcare affordable. If you wanted to really do that, you have to deregulate insurance. You have to let prices fall where they may, and you have to have some people who are not paying very much right now pay more. And you may say, well, that's unfair. And then we get the whole argument about socialism and everything else. But anyway, that's the way to get healthcare more affordable. Get rid of health insurance regulations that make you have certain coverages. You should be able to buy a catastrophic insurance plan. You can't buy a catastrophic insurance plan right now. It's illegal, actually. If you're an insurance company, let's say pick one, I don't know, or make one up. Your Acme Health Insurance Company operating in Florida. You have licensure in Florida and you're selling health insurance plans. And you say, I want to sell a health insurance plan that just covers the bare necessities. Tommy in Lutz has called me and says, I want an insurance plan that covers hospitalization. He does not want an insurance plan that covers a doctor visit because he can pay for that himself. He goes to the doctor once a year. He's willing to pay $300 even to see a doctor once a year. He'd probably pay less, but he's willing to pay that much. He doesn't want to pay for his medications because he's not on any. Or if he is on any, he can get them cheap. He can get them through Mark Cuban's pharmacy. He can get them through Amazon. He can get them through Walmart. He can get them through Publix. He says he can get his medicines. He thinks 90 pills for $10, and he doesn't need insurance coverage. He says he's healthy, and he's not worried about going to see a bunch of different specialists. And so he's going to say, I want to pay, like I said, I don't want to have the doctor visits paid for. I'll pay for them myself. If I happen to see someone besides my one doctor once a year, then I'll suck it up and I'll pay for that. And then he wants me to give him a plan, and I figured out the plan cost, and talking with the actuaries and figuring out all of it, I'm going to say, I think I can give him a plan that will cover everything for $1,000 a month. Well, that's not going to happen. The reason number one, is it's illegal. You have to have like I said, I forgot what they're called, the terminology. But anyway, basically Obamacare says that if you're going to sell health insurance, you have to have certain things guaranteed coverage. And some of those things, like I said, include doctor visits, include medications, blah, 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 down the line. And so that's number one reason. Number two, he can't sell that because there's not enough people to buy that. People are scared of buying quote unquote skimpy insurance because people like Barack Obama went on TV and said skimpy insurance plans are bad. Insurance plans that don't cover everything are bad. And people got scared and they said, well, certainly Barack Obama's not going to tell me something that's not true. He's a good guy. He's upstanding. He just wants to help me, like Dr. Emanuel. They just both want to help. And so they wouldn't tell me something that's not true. And skimpy insurance plans are bad. So you have the government with your tax dollars marketing against what is really insurance and marketing for these big, expensive plans that pay for things that people don't want. So there was no market for it, A. And the market, if there was a market for it, it's illegal to do it anyway, and which is a reason there is no market for it. You can't have a market for a product if the market's illegal unless it's a black market, and you can't really have black market insurance. So if you wanted to, though, like I said, you could have insurance. There's no reason that insurance couldn't cost as much as I used to pay in 2012, adjusted for inflation. There's no reason that couldn't happen. You should be able to buy a plan that pays for hospitalization. You should be able to buy a plan that pays for some catastrophic illness. You should be able to buy a plan that says, look, I'm going to pay for everything up until, pick the number, $100,000, $50,000, $20,000, $1 million, depends on your circumstance. And then we'd have real insurance. But to do that, you'd have to build a whole ecosystem of free market medicine. And if you go to free market medicine, what's it? It's the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, Kevin Smith. They're not Kevin Smith. That's the director. Anyway, I'll look it up here. But anyway, free market medicine is something that exists only in very small, very, very small pockets of the country. It's a free market medical association. And that's like I said, that's one place you can start to see free market medicine. But it's not widespread. It will hopefully be widespread, maybe in the future somewhere. Let's see who runs it. Yeah, it's Dr. Keith Smith. That's it. Keith Smith, and this Jay Kimpton are the founders of the Free Market Medical Association. And then Dr. Smith is also the founder of the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, or co-founder, where you can have surgery for basically cash prices. So there are people out there that understand there's free markets out there. Like I said, in our practice, we're concierge medicine. Tracy and I are very in tune to the prices of things, real prices, because although some of our patients are uninsured, most of our patients are insured. And they may or may not want to use their insurance for everything, or they may have a high deductible and they don't want to necessarily meet their deductible. They're willing to not meet their deductible if it means saving them a lot of money. So, let me give you an example. So let's say you're in my practice and you have healthcare insurance and you have it through your employer. And let's say your deductible is $1,000. And let's say you come to me and you say, Dr. Tommy, I hurt my knee. And then we say, well, you need an MRI. I think maybe you tore your ACL. Unfortunately, you tore your ACL. I think, God forbid, but hopefully you didn't, but maybe you did. Let's get an MRI. So I send you to go get an MRI. And then the MRI people schedule you and they say, what do you have? Do you have insurance? And you say, yes, I do. And you think, oh, thank God I have insurance. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars. And then they run your insurance and they're like, you do have insurance and it's covered. Oh, great. You haven't met your deductible though. Okay. We have negotiated a price with your insurance company. Okay, good. The price for your MRI is $1,500. And you're like, well, geez. Oh, that's a lot of money. And they say, well, you didn't meet your deductible. At that point, you can choose, let's say your deductible is $6,000. At that point, you can choose to say, well, I want to meet my deductible, damn it. And this is one way to meet it. Bill me up, Scotty, $1,500. Here's the visa. And you pay him $1,500. Well, congratulations, you're $4,500 closer to meeting your deductible, after which your insurance may kick in 80% or maybe 100%. But you didn't meet your deductible yet, so you can pay $1,500. Now, what I would recommend doing at that point is stopping, if you're my patient, and say, wait. Hold on a second. I seem to remember Dr. Tommy telling me, don't schedule it if I haven't met my deductible. Talk to him first. I think Tracy said something about $350. So I'm going to call. So they call us and we say, don't do it. Tell them you don't want to use your insurance. Tell them you want to pay cash, and you pay cash and you pay $350 and you walk out, same MRI, same doctor, same everything. And you may even get it scheduled sooner because they didn't have to get approval from your insurance company. So you may have been able to get it done that day if they have space available instead of 2 weeks, because you don't have to wait for the insurance company to say it's okay. And you saved yourself, was that $1,150? So that's what I would recommend doing is in that case. But that's the thing, is that type of understanding is not widespread. And I can honestly tell you that most doctors don't care about that. Most doctors work in the insurance business. They don't want to deal with insurance companies, people who don't have insurance. If you don't have insurance, they certainly don't want to figure out how to get you the right price or a better price. It's kind of your fault if you don't have insurance. I'll tell a personal story. So Tracy and I don't carry health insurance, and Tracy was going to a doctor once, and they anyway, short of it is there was a study that was to be ordered, but the doctor told her, well, I know you don't have insurance, so you might not want to do this. Thinking, I guess Tracy was poor, which is not the case. But anyway, it's very condescending attitude that a lot of doctors have towards patients who don't have insurance. And it's, I don't know why it is. It's just, I don't know, ignorance maybe. I'll be generous and say they're ignorant rather than they're just biased. But that's something that you'll run into. Anyway, we don't have that problem here. Moving along. What else do we got there? Okay. Mark Zuckerberg, this is from Breitbart, is building an AI clone to replace him in meetings. Now, this is surprising to me on a couple of levels. One, I'm surprised that they would make this public. If I was a CEO of Meta or some other company like that, and I was going to do this, and I thought it was going to be convincing, I would just do it and not tell anybody. Just because I wouldn't want them to think I'm just lollygagging around when I'm supposed to be working. I would let them meet with the AI clone instead, and then not tell them, and then, that's what I would do. B, that's A reason why it surprised me. B reason it surprised me is I assumed that he was already an AI clone. I did not know that Mark Zuckerberg was actually still a real person. I long ago figured that he was an AI person. I did not know that he is actually a real person outside of, maybe the real one goes on like Rogan and stuff, but I always assumed that the forward-facing Mark Zuckerberg that we see testifying in Congress, maybe appearing in videos or whatever, I thought that was I did not know that was actually Mark Zuckerberg. I assumed it was the AI Mark Zuckerberg. But anyway, he's going to make an AI clone to replace him in meetings, and it will give feedback to employees. It'll be interesting. I think there's a very good chance in the future that AI clones, or not clones, but robots, will be walking amongst us. The reasons for that is because I've worked with AI now since last year to help build some things, including a website, another website, and a little project, kind of a joke therapy project that used AI to largely build the content and the structure, and me acting as kind of like a showrunner. So anyway, I think AI has the ability to do what they are asking this clone to do, is meet with people and talk to them. And it would be interesting to see in 10 years where we stand with that. I was listening to a Tesla shareholder meeting with Elon Musk, who I think is a very smart person. I know a lot of people give Elon, flack for being whatever. I don't know. I think Elon, if anything, Elon is a big thinker. People say, well, he stole his ideas and blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Elon is a good CEO because he's a visionary, I think. And I also think he is a good at marketing. I look at Elon Musk similarly to the way I look at Steve Jobs in terms of how they lead their companies. Steve Jobs had the foresight to want the iPhone to be built. He was the one that spearheaded the iPhone. And so the iPhone transformed technology, obviously. So I think a person like Elon Musk is going to transform things. And I think one of the things he's going to transform is, I think he's already transformed transportation. And I don't mean the cars themselves. I mean the idea of the car. And so his idea of the car as basically a computer on wheels, I think is a different iteration than the change that was made from, let's say, making a gas to a diesel. It's a whole different idea. It's a different concept. His idea of the car is a car that will drive itself. His idea of a car is a car that thinks. His idea of a car is a car that, I don't even get into the part about the electricity part, because that to me is beyond the, if let's put it this way, if Tesla made gas cars that drove themselves, I would be just as interested in buying a Tesla gas car that drove itself. The idea that Tesla is electrical to me is beyond doesn't matter. The only reason I would want to buy a Tesla is because of its capabilities beyond driving. I'm sorry, because of its capabilities from a computational standpoint. I don't care that it's electrical or gas. Back to the reason I say that is because he said in this investor meeting that they're going to build 1 million Optimus robots. And I think those Optimus robots are going to be in homes at some point, and maybe in businesses, and maybe talking with you, and maybe doing things. And it'll be interesting. But anyway, back to Mark Zuckerberg. He is not a clone, apparently, because they're building a clone to help him in his daily function as the CEO of Meta. What else do we have here? Blah, blah, blah. Steve Hilton says, oh, this is interesting. So Eric Swalwell to me always struck me as just a, I don't know, how do you say it? How did Eric Swalwell strike me? He struck me as someone who I would not want to be alone with in a room, even if I was a man, just because he seems so greasy. And certainly wouldn't want to be with him, alone with him in as if I was a woman, after all these things have come out about him. So they say that Eric Swalwell now he's in trouble for, improprieties with women, to make it mild. And now he's dropped out of his gubernatorial race, and he is going to resign from Congress, which he has not done yet. Apparently, I don't follow this stuff very closely because I honestly don't care. But what brought it to mind was, as soon as I heard that Swalwell was going down politically, I thought, well, this is interesting, very interesting. And the immediate person I thought of was Andrew Cuomo. Do you remember Andrew Cuomo? Andrew Cuomo in 2021 was the darling of the Democrat media. He actually won a Grammy. Was it a Grammy? Emmy, not a Grammy. He didn't sing. He won an Emmy for his presentations on COVID, because he would get up there and he would do the New York guy, and we got this taken care of. And people loved it, especially people like, the potato, on CNN. He loved it. The human potato. He was just got, he just ate that type of stuff up. And a lot of people did. And then what happened? Andrew Cuomo said, well, he's going to run for president now. And so then he starts getting a little bit big for his britches because, maybe there's some people that he stepped on the toes of. And before you know it, what happened to Andrew Cuomo? He's out of it. And why? Again, sex problems. He groped a woman or something like that. That was accused. He was accused of it, and he had to drop out. And then actually, I think it was Tish James. Tish James was the one that went after him, I believe. Attorney General. And there were thoughts, well, Tish James obviously doesn't like him, and maybe wants to take him out. Now, then they would say, well, no, she's just doing her job. She's the Attorney General. She's being unbiased, unlike Donald Trump's Attorney General, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, politically speaking, he got taken out. But I thought this is interesting because Andrew Cuomo was reaching for the stars, so to speak. He was the governor. He was an Emmy winner. He was going to now be potentially president. And then, boom, his legs got cut out from under him. And then, again, you look at Swalwell, big media presence. When he wasn't flatulating on camera, was doing, interviews here and there and everywhere, criticizing Trump. And then what happens? He gets a little bit too big for his britches, and boom, suddenly, Swalwell's a bad guy. Swalwell's a sexual predator, maybe, and all these things. But it says Steve Hilton here says it's Democrat machine covered for Swalwell. And he says, we heard all this months ago. And that, to me, when I saw that, I said, it makes perfect sense. Because I think that they probably did know about this. And then someone says, pull the trigger. Just like in the mafia. You have a capo who's maybe getting a little bit too big for his britches. Maybe he started off and he was a good guy, and he was a hard worker. He's an overachiever. And then he starts, he gets more and more responsibilities, takes over more rackets. And maybe he starts showing up at meetings. Maybe he starts talking out of line a little bit more. Maybe he starts talking over certain people who don't like to be talked over. And then before you know it, bam, he's gone. I think that's what happened to Swalwell. I think he showed himself, and they said, yeah, I don't know if we want this guy doing this. I don't know if we want to hand him this. And boom, they took him out. And I think the same thing happened to Cuomo before him. I think they both got taken out. And I think if you think that Swalwell and Cuomo are the only greaseballs in the Democrat Party, then you're crazy. And if you think those guys don't also exist in the Republican Party, then I know you're crazy, because they do. Anyway, that's a little bit of rundown. I wanted to do this too, the boxing today. Boxing history today. So today in boxing history on April 16th, 1987, Sugar Ray Leonard, coming off a long retirement, won a split decision against Marvelous Marvin Hagler to capture the WBC Middleweight Championship in a massive upset. This was in Las Vegas, I believe. Was it Las Vegas? I think it was. And so the backstory on this was Ray Leonard and Marvelous Marvin Hagler were set to fight in 1982. And Leonard at that point was at the top of his game. Actually, Leonard at that point was probably the top of his career, arguably ever, because he had won back the title that he lost to Roberto Duran by outclassing or outfoxing, but definitely outboxing Roberto Duran, and the No Mas fight. Okay, so prior to that, Duran had outmuscled Leonard, and Duran had basically challenged the manhood of Ray Leonard, did a lot of different things, talked about his wife, all kinds of things. Anyway, he did a masterful psychological job on Leonard. Even if he didn't plan to, he did it. And he got Leonard to fight him on his terms. And Duran, even though he was coming up in weight from lightweight at that point to welterweight, a 12-pound jump. I don't know the math on that, but 12 divided by 135, whatever that is, he jumped a percentage of his body weight up. And he took on Ray Leonard and beat Ray Leonard. And Ray Leonard at that point was the golden boy of boxing, at least in the welterweight division. And at that point, that was like 1981 or 80. At that point, the heavyweight division was on doldrums because Ali had been retired and basically had come back. I don't know if he had come back at that point or not, but he was out of the picture. Holmes, there was a fracture in the title. I think John Tate maybe was one of the champions. Holmes was a champion. That was before the IBF, so there was only two. Anyway, Ray Leonard was the guy, and then Duran came up and beat him. All right, so then that happened. And then then Leonard got his title back. He beat Duran. And then what happened? Well, then Leonard faced off against Tommy the Hitman Hearns, and probably one of the biggest showdowns ever in the welterweight division. Tommy Hearns and Leonard squared off, and Leonard stopped Hearns in the 14th round, I believe it was. It was a TKO fight. So Leonard is at the top of his game then, and then Leonard gets a detached retina. Leonard retires. And there's this famous press conference where Leonard and Hagler are there, and Hagler then was the middleweight champion, and Hagler was there, and they called a press conference, and Leonard has Hagler on camera, and Leonard very, I don't know what you call it. You could say it was very spiteful or something. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, Leonard, they built this up as this was going to be an announcement of Leonard Hagler fight, and Leonard even goes so far as to say this would be one of the greatest fights ever, and then he goes, it's not going to happen, and then he retires on camera, and he retires because of those detached retina problems that he'd been having, and Hagler's just standing there dumbfounded because Hagler, although he was a great fighter, could never secure the amount of money fighting the guys he fought without Leonard, and that's the business of the game. And then so that was in 1982. Follow that up 5 years later, 87. Leonard comes back one fight. He fights this guy named Kevin Howard, who was a fringe contender. Not to diminish Howard or not, but he wasn't a top contender. And Howard actually knocks Leonard down for the first time in his career. Leonard rebounds to stop Kevin Howard. I believe it was round 7. But then he retires again, and that was in 84. So he's been retired now for 5 years mostly, with one comeback fight in 1984. And here he is. He's going to come back and face Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And who was Hagler at this point? Well, Hagler was probably the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. In 1987, Hagler had beaten everybody that was put before him. He was, I think it was 62-2 or 61-2 when he went into this fight. I think he was 60 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws. He had lost once. I can't remember who the fighter was, but I think he later avenged it, and he had a couple draws. Anyway, he'd been undefeated for a very long time, and along the way, he had destroyed Tommy Hearns in 3 rounds. He had beaten Roberto Duran, who was at that point at a high mark in his career because Roberto Duran had rebounded after the debacle where he quit against Leonard, and then subsequently he lost to Wilfredo Benitez. He had rebounded at that point by taking out Davey Moore to win the WBC, I think it was WBC or WBA's junior middleweight title. And so then he was moving up to fight Hagler. Hagler turned back Duran. So Hagler was doing well. And then Hagler had, just before this Ray Leonard fight, I believe it was the fight right before this, beat undefeated fighter. I'll look it up here in a second. But anyway, Hagler was at the top of his game, but he was slipping, it looked like. And I think Leonard, I've seen articles where they say Leonard saw this from the cameras where he was doing the color commentary, and he challenged Hagler. And then this is the fight. It was a 12-round fight. It's a split decision fight. And if you look at the fight, you could argue that Leonard beat Hagler on points, and you could say if he did beat him, it was mostly style points. Hagler started off the fight fighting orthodox in a way, I think it was a way to try to confuse Leonard, and it didn't really work. And what happened was Hagler ended up giving away about 3 rounds to Leonard, and those 3 rounds probably were the ones that cost him the fight, because Leonard at that point in his career, which was, like I said, his only comeback fight, his comeback fight after only fighting once in the previous 5 years, was prone to fighting in spurts. And this became what happened in this fight is he would lay on the, he would not lay on the ropes, but he wouldn't fight nonstop unless it was the last 30 seconds. And in 30 seconds of each round, he would have someone yell to him when it was, and he would just set off this flurry, and that impressed a lot of the judges. And I think he won, like I said, based on style points, mostly over Marvin Hagler. He didn't really beat up Hagler. Hagler didn't really beat up Hearns. It was a spirited fight, and there was a lot of talk about a rematch, which never happened. And I think Hagler wanted the rematch. Leonard did not want the rematch, and it never happened. And I think Hagler probably held that against Leonard a little bit. John Mugabe was the fighter that was the guy who preceded the fight with Sugar Ray Leonard. John the Beast Mugabe, who was a junior middleweight champion, and he was 26-0 with 26 knockouts when he fought Hagler, and Hagler beat him in 11th round. But that fight was a hard fight for Hagler, and these fights took a lot out of Hagler, and that's when Leonard saw that from the ringside, or so I've read people say. And then he said, well, now's the time. Took advantage of it. Leonard would go on to fight a few more times and win. He beat Donnie Lalonde in a catchweight fight when she won both the super middleweight title and the light heavyweight title. Lalonde was the light heavyweight titleist and moved down to super middleweight, cut weight, so they'd make it a. It was the reason why it was marketed so that Leonard could be the first 5-division champion, which in modern times means that you basically fought across, well, that would have been 30 pounds. So he went from 147 to 175 theoretically, although when he weighed in, he did not weigh anywhere near, I think they said he weighed in at I can't remember what his weight was, 165 or 167. And he said he had, or someone said he had rolls of quarters in his pants to get that weight. Anyway, he did fight Hearns again, and Hearns and he struggled both mightily to a 12-round draw. That fight to me is actually more interesting than the first fight. The first fight, they were in their prime, welterweight. The second fight was super middleweight, and is similar in the way that the Thrilla in Manila is a great fight. Both fighters had slowed down just enough where the fight was very competitive and very brutal. And the second fight between Hearns and Leonard was a draw, although Hearns knocked down Leonard twice, and Leonard later admitted that Hearns won that fight. Then Leonard fought Duran again, beat Duran. It was a very boring fight, third fight. And then Leonard retired. Then he came back and he fought Terry Norris, who was at that point kind of an unknown. Terry Norris beat him very thoroughly over the course of 12 rounds, knocked him down twice, I think. And then, inexplicably, Leonard retired again and then came back 5 years later and fought, of all people, Hector Macho Camacho, who was no spring chicken, but still had enough left to knock down Leonard and then stop him. Thankfully, Leonard has not come back since, and Leonard is close to 70 years old now, so I don't think he will be able to come back. He's 69 here. So anyway, that's the Dr. Tommy Show. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to show you one thing, though. I was going to tell you about AI. And so I wanted to show you something. So I talked about this about a little bit last week. AI projects. So this is my website, and then there's a website that I also have called Concierge Medicine Tampa Bay. This was made with AI, coded by AI. This picture was made with AI. That little boy and that woman don't exist. Everything was made with AI, even the wording. Now, I don't have to have the wording do it. I was doing this as a what do they call it? Kind of like a research project. I was saying, well, what can AI do? And so I just basically told AI, look, here's my website. Here's what I want to do. Build this website. And it went and did all this stuff. Copilot largely, but also used Grok for some coding. But Copilot built the words and stuff, and Copilot just found it and drew it. Now, that's one thing. Now, here's the other AI thing. So this is the podcast page, drtommy.com/podcast. And here's Dr. Kufferman. So Dr. Kufferman is a fake joke therapy doctor, which I alluded to last week. He introduced me on the show. And here's Dr. Kufferman, your friendly desktop joke therapist. Now, why I made this guy is I was at Target, and there was this little guy. He was they called him desktop therapist, actually. He was a little bald-headed guy, gray hair. And I thought, well, I'm going to make one of them. I want to see if I can make one of them. So I started talking with Copilot. I said, look here. I sent a picture, and I said, this is the concept. I want to make one of these. And he said, or Copilot said, okay, well, here's what you could do. And I said, here's my idea. He's going to he's going to say some words, and then he's going to do some basic movements. He'll maybe put his hand on his chin. Maybe he'll touch his glasses, this, that, and the other. And so Copilot said, okay, here's how you can do it. You can start layering PNGs, which is a type of image file. And you can layer those, and then you can do this and this. And I was like, I don't know. It sounds like a lot of work. And I remember one time I did this project with Copilot. It was a troubleshooting project. And I said, I want to, I need to figure out what's going on. And Copilot took me around the world and to find a simple solution. And there's this axiom, I guess you call it, with AI that says AI makes hard things harder and easier things easier. And that's not necessarily across the board true, but what AI can do is lead you on a wild goose chase. And I did kind of do that. So I remembered that. And then I actually ended up getting help from Grok on that coding thing. And Grok told me, he said, look, basically, Copilot told you, you said you needed to go to the store. And Copilot said, okay, here's how we build a car, instead of saying, there's a car in the driveway. So Grok, I remember thinking, well, Grok can kind of do coding also. So then I told Grok my idea, and I said, you can do video. Here's this picture that Copilot made. Can you animate this video? And it did. And here we go. So this is the final product, one of the final products. So this picture here is Dr. Kufferman animated by Grok I said, this is a resting loop. I want him just to sit there, kind of smile. It's got a little nice elevator music in the background. And then so Dr. Kufferman's here listening. He's your friendly desktop joke therapist. And so what this little therapist said at Target was, if you push a button, it would say things like, tell me more about that. Or it would say, and how does that make you feel? Or it would say, tell me about your family, or tell me about your mother. This kind of canned stuff that therapists will say to you that while they're doing the crossword puzzle. Not all therapists, obviously. I'm not speaking poorly of therapists. I'm saying there's a stigma amongst therapists that they offer canned BS that is, basically boilerplate stuff. So anyway, I thought, well, that's funny. I'll do that with Dr. Kufferman. I'll make my own desktop therapist. So here we go. So this is Dr. Kufferman's listening. So you click here. It says start therapy. And
Greetings. I'm Dr. Stephen Kufferman. Let's begin.
And so you begin. So Dr. Kufferman's sitting here and you say, well, I'm going to get therapy.
In the book of Aesop, it says, slow and steady wins the race. Profound and absolutely true.
So that's a little nugget of nothing wisdom from Dr. Kufferman from the book of Aesop, which he thinks is like the book of Job or something like that. The book of Aesop, Aesop's fables, slow and steady wins the race. Dr. Kufferman offers that as legit therapy. So let's see what else he's got to say.
Now it's time. Let's talk about when you first had this feeling.
Okay, again, another sweet nothing. And then you say, okay, well, let's be inspired then.
What you describe is common across many worlds and eras. I draw on that experience to help you here.
Oh, now he's getting into the outer realms where he's saying things that sound a little bit weird. So he's talking about being in other worlds as well. So he's listening. Dr. Kufferman's listening. Let's be inspired.
My clinic doesn't fix anything. It just creates the conditions where the truth has room to surface.
Well, okay, let's get some more.
In my life before this, I was a ballerina in the court of the Russian Tsar.
Wow.
He was a good man who taught me self-discipline. That helps me guide patients today.
Well, he gets really out there, and if you keep listening to him, he's got a lot of different anecdotes. One of them about healing somebody that seems rather out of the world. But anyway, that's Dr. Kufferman. And this is a little sidebar, and it shows his notes while you're talking to him. So you're talking to him.
Crystals don't fix you. They realign your astral DNA to its cosmic shape. We fix your DNA.
Oh, well, that seems interesting. So he's talking about astral DNA, which is actually a concept that people have, that you have DNA in your body that comes from the stars. Anyway, so this is all to show you that what you can do with AI. Back to my point earlier, I think there's going to be a point in the future where there is a person in your house who is a robot potentially, and they may be doing mundane chores or they may be doing important things. Anyway, this is Dr. Tommy Show. Thank you for joining us. Go to drtommy.com/podcast. Listen live on Rumble or YouTube and watch live. And then it's available via audio on Spotify, audio and video on Spotify, and across the board on any of the other audio places. That's it for today. Join us next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.